Well, we meet again. It's Miss Shaheen, and let's go ahead and wrap up our Big 6. But before we actually get to me not talking and you doing your work, I do want to go over what the big steps are. I do want to make sure you've got that pre-assessment completed. It's very important that you have that. It's always good to have a starting point so that way you can see how much have you learned when you're done. And then I've also given your teacher a video, and I want for them to show that to you whenever we are done. Also just provide it to you as just a resource if you need it. I've also given you this really cool one-page front-back handout. It is also color-coded. I've made one for each student. It's front-back, it's color-coded in the order of the rainbow to help you remember what step goes next. The only color I didn't include was yellow, but that's because yellow is hard to read, so it's in black. Each step has a term, a definition, and an image. I've also included on each one a tip to help you. I've included a list of resources at the bottom of the handout. I've given you websites from other organizations that also use Big 6. Most of them are school districts or schools. Some of them explain the steps in a different manner, and I think since we have so many different learners out there, that helps. I've also given you a link to a brainstorm map for you to print to help you start off the process. So let's start with the first step, task definition. With this step, you will need to read through the instructions. Make sure you understand what the project is and what the teacher is asking of you. Make sure you fully understand the assignment and ask your teacher questions if you are unsure of it. That's what they're there for, is to help answer those questions. This step is important to start with because you will need to make sure you know what you're doing before you move on to the next step. Break down the question and start writing some guiding questions to help you with your research. Start brainstorming some ideas using a web or just throwing words down on paper, whichever one is your preferred method. Write down any and every idea, even if you think it isn't worth exploring. You never know, that one silly idea might be one of your points later on down the line. So once you have your thoughts down, start connecting them into the web. It's also important to start thinking of how you will find this information. Remember, ask all the questions. Ask them of your teacher, ask them of yourself, ask them of your partners, ask them of your librarian. This is that step where you get to ask all of the questions to help with everything else. Step 2, information seeking strategies. And the last step, you set up a list of questions and brainstorming. Now I want you to write down where you think you will find your information. The internet, library, books, interviews. What sources are you going to use? Our campus has a strong database with many options for you to look up your information. Are you looking for scientific research? If so, then a database about Shakespeare is probably not what you need. We can't always find the information needed through online research and books, so sometimes we need to find something to research ourselves. If you want to set up a poll, you're more than welcome to see how your peers feel about something. Go run it during lunch, before, after school, in the classes when you go into them. You can even set up a poll on your social media account. And my suggestion is get yourself a good hefty number, about 100 people if you're going to use the poll. So that way you have a lot of people to work with, or a lot of information from the people. Step 3, location and access. Now that you have decided the sources you want to use, we need to access them. This is where asking the librarian for help comes into play. I am here to help you, so please, please ask me the questions and I can help you as much as I can. My question to you though is, do you know how the books and library is set up? Can you find an item using Dewey Decimal System? Do you know that searching for something in Google is very different than searching for something in the databases? Are you using the table of contents and skimming information in books? This step wants you to find the item you are looking for and make sure you have the correct access to it. Remember, those questions you wrote earlier in step 1, the ones that are supposed to help guide your research, if those questions were not focused enough, you will struggle with this step. If you find yourself stuck, there is no problem going back to your original brainstorming and creating a new path for your research. You may always take steps back with the Big 6. Don't jump ahead though, but you can always take steps back to correct anything that maybe you missed or maybe something you need to tweak or alter. Step 4, use of information. With this step, you will skim through the articles you found and jot down the evidence to support your argument. There is no need to read every single word, but look for those keywords, vocabulary words in bold, or any section that you predict will have something for your project based off of the headings. This information isn't just something you read. Think about how you absorb information with your 5 senses. It can come from watching videos, something you hear like an audio recording or an interview. It can come from smells, physical touch. Your guiding question will determine how you engage with your evidence. Do not copy and paste your information. This is plagiarism, and we don't want that. Make sure you write down where you got your information from. Step 5, synthesis. With this step, you're going to take all of that beautiful, glorious information that you have gathered from all of your amazing sources and compile them into one product. Now, don't just dump your information in a Word document without any sort of organization. So we want to start by outlining your ideas. When you have an outline, everything seems to fall into place. You should have a thesis statement. You should have topic sentences. And all of that amazing evidence should go to support each point that you are making. That is why having an outline here is very, very, very important. Turn it all into one final product so that way it can be submitted and presented to your teacher. Evaluation, the last step. Now you're at the end, you need to compare your final product to the rubric your teacher gave you. This will give you a heads up of what your grade will be because you can compare your work against what is being asked of you by your teacher. You should also take this time to evaluate not just your project, but I want to know how you worked within the process, how chunking the assignment helps you. I want you to judge your project, judge yourself, and judge the process, because this lets us see what our strengths and our weaknesses are when it comes to work like this. We spoke today about the Big 6. We went over each of the steps: task evaluation, information seeking strategies, location and access, use of information, synthesis, evaluation, and I explained the handout I have available to you. Through chunking your project like this, it will be easier for you to complete the task your teacher is asking of you. If at any point you find yourself stuck, go back. Look at the initial guiding questions you wrote for yourself and your research. There's nothing wrong with going back and adjusting previous steps. Also, please ask questions of your teachers, your peers, and myself. I have given your teacher a video that will help you out if you need a different definition of the steps. The Big 6 will guide you to a strong final product. I have left your teacher with a pre-assignment. I left your teacher with that pre-assessment, which I hope you have completed by now. So that way you can see how prepared you're going to be for your research process. So now go off and go be brilliant.